Okay, so how can you put this information that Dave has shared to use to find the best course and distance combinations and the horses that are likely to lead in those races? So this is a free, actually this is a not logged in account, so this basically anybody can come to the site and do it this way. The first thing to do is to go to the show filters, and what we'll do is we'll just choose UK all weather. So I'm going to get handicap, so I'm going to get rid of the rest, and then I'm going to say 7 runners plus. And I'll just put this on the compact view. You can see that these are the runners I've got left. I only want the most of those race distances are between 5 and 7 furlongs. So we've now got these 6 races here, which fit the bill. And if I just put it on the by time version, I can see the race distance for each specific race. I think I'm going to look at this 225 at Lingfield, and you can see straight away here that I've got a subset of the tabs at the top, and the draw tab is displayed, but I've only got kind of sample content because I'm not logged in and I'm not a paid subscriber, so I don't actually have access to this information here. But what I do have is access to the horse form, and within the horse form there's a column called RS, which is run style, and this is the run style that the horse adopted in that particular race. So for instance, if we look at Supernova Steps here, we can see that In Touch with Leaders, weekend of furlong out, we call In Touch with Leaders a midfield runner. Prominent, so we've got a P. Disputed Lead early, led after a furlong, so we've got an L. In Touch with Leaders, midfield, and so on. So from this data here, from the last 6 runs, we can build up a picture of which horses might lead in the race. What we can further do is we can order by the draw, like so, and then I've got my inside drawn runner is Miss Moonshine, and the widest of all is Sisters in the Sky. And now if I click this recent form icon in the top menu bar, it's going to open up the form, the last 6 races for each runner. So what we can do is we can very quickly glance down the RS, the run style column, and try to build a picture of how many likely leaders or possible leaders there are in the race. So for instance, Miss Moonshine has got a midfield, held up, led midfield. Could lead, but maybe won't. Ashimali looks an unlikely leader with held up and midfield only. Doves of Peace, prominent a couple of times recently, and midfield in the other ones. South Bank, always held up or midfield. Ravensbourne led, but ages ago, and typically is held up. Supernova Steps has that one led and prominent recently. Sassy Redhead, again no L's. Bobby on the Beat, held ups and midfields mainly. Lil Kian has led in 2 of his last 4 runs. Not obviously in great form, but definitely is a contender to lead, as perhaps is Poetic Jack, with a lead and 2 prominence recently. And we can see that although Millie the Molly has been held up in midfield most recently, there's lead and prominence in her last 6 runs, whereas Sisters in the Sky, drawn the widest, is almost certain to be dropped in from that. So in this particular race there isn't any obvious front runner, but there are a few candidates, particularly some of the wider drawn horses that might go forward. So that's one way that you can just use the information that's freely available on the race card to kind of create a picture in your mind about which horses might go forward. Now, if you're a registered free subscriber, on Sunday and Monday you'll see an extra tab in this tab list here for pace, and that's our run star tab, and what you'll see there are the pace maps for these races. So you'll have all of the crunching of these RS run styles done for you, and you'll have some information on historical performance of certain run styles and draw sections. For our light subscribers, there's more detail that we can look at, and let's see if I can find a race here. Let's have a look at this 6 furlong 12 runner handicap that closes the Kempton card, and on this card we've got the draw tab available, so we can look at the draw tab, and I have mine set up like this. I look at actual draw, which just accounts for non-runners, and it's set up on handicap, and I tend to look at percentage of rivals beaten because that gives all of the runners in a race some sort of a score, and it's more it's a more holistic view of the data set. So it definitely is something worth thinking about if you look at these tabs, to look at the PRB figure. A reminder is that 0.5 is 50%, so horses drawn low and held up beat as many rivals as beat them. They're right on 50%, whereas horses drawn low which led in their races have beaten 69% of rivals, 0.69, and indeed you can see this sort of virtuous triangle here, which is significantly favoured over the other triangle, sort of held up or wide drawn runners who are unfavoured. And then there's constituent data here that you can look at if you want to, but fundamentally we can see straight away that if you're drawn low or you lead, basically if you're in this triangle here with your typical run style, then that's going to be advantageous. So you've got access to that information again on Sundays and Mondays. You can see the pace tab here, and you can see today's runners overlaid on this pace map, but you'll need to again use the horse form tab. Let's sort by draw again, and you can see that, for instance, horse drawn in 1 is not going to lead today. I think it'd be quite a surprise if it did lead, having been held up in at least its last 6 runs. Big Bard doesn't look like a leader. Heart Rate is another one very unlikely to lead. So it's quite interesting that the front 3, the inside 3 draws are all not slowly away, but steadily away, whereas the horse in stall 4, Smasher, has got lots of lead form, and so he's got a very good chance to get to the front because he's got 3 horses inside him that are not quick away, and on his outside he's got another one that's held up, and another one that's held up. Port Headland did lead last time and has raced prominently a few times, so that one might go forward. Star Song looks likely to go forward, but is another that's a huge price. Another held up in midfield runner, prominent racer who rarely leads, another prominent racer who rarely leads, and a horse that's been held up recently. So there's not a lot of pace in this race. The pace that there is most likely to come from Star Song and Smasher, and we can see that. It's taken me maybe a minute to not only look at that but also sort of speak over it as well. If you were doing it, you'd be able to very quickly get a perspective on the pace in the race. So that's a very simple way of doing it that anybody can do with access to Geegeez, even as a free customer. So that's light. And of course, if you are a light subscriber, you have access to the Draw Analyzer tool as well, which Dave has referenced in his article, and he was looking at Lingfield 5 furlongs, 7+ runner handicaps since 2020. And so if we go down to the PRB here, you can see this 76, 71, 58, which is what Dave referenced in his article here. So those are the tools available to a light a Geegeez Lite subscriber. Plenty to help you understand what the draw impact is likely to be there with alongside run style. And of course our gold subscribers have access to everything, so let's have a look at a race that a gold subscriber can see. And in this case we've got a 7 furlong 8 runner handicap at Lingfield. So we had the draw tab as before, and you can see here that basically held up is not good, and held up or mid division from a high draw is difficult. Again, although it's not a massively strong bias, those in the who race further forward, and particularly perhaps inside or on the front, have got the best edge. And if we've got the pace tab as well to look at. So if we look on pace, we can see I've ordered this by draw, so I can see basically Huffy Alain is drawn on the inside closest to the rail, and Local Hero in 8 is drawn widest, furthest away from the rail. And I can see how I can start to visualize how the race is going to be run. So I'm looking at the average of the last 3 races, and sometimes I'll do this to see what they did in their last 2, and we can see that these 2 guys are likely to go forward, Huffy Alain and Palmer Bay, and then the last 4 just to kind of corroborate that, and we can see that it's the same guys who are there regardless of how I'm setting it up, with the possible having a great time interloping in between them. These blobs at the top are very informative, so we can see here that horses that led since we started collecting the data have won 55 out of 322 race leaders or horses that contested the lead. So they win at a 17% rate. That's nearly 1.5 times as frequently as the average, and they've made a profit of 57.85, £57.85 to a £1 unit stake at starting price. You can compare that with held up horses who won at an 8% clip and lost £336 across the 762 runner sample. So being forward or prominent is definitely the way here, and the 2 horses that look like they are the guys here are Harfeet Allen and Palmer Bay, and it's as simple as that. So it's obviously much quicker and easier to view this. And again, to remind you, as either a light or a free subscriber, on Sundays and Mondays you'll have access to the pace tab on the race cards, so it's definitely worth checking in with those. And if you use this overlaying Dave's top 10 all-weather run style bias, front running biases, you've got a very powerful edge to get you started, and then you can go in and look at the form and make your final judgments on that basis. Okay, I hope that's added a little bit of colour to Dave's excellent theory work, and wishing you all the best with your all-weather betting this winter.